of the Laughter for All podcast. My guest today is the funny comedian Joey ILO. Joey he goes from big stages to corporate events and comedy tours. He's brought his unique brand of comedy to audiences across North America for 15 years. Joey is convinced that comedy brings people together and laughter really heals. When he was told by doctors he needed to find a job without any stress, he turned to what he knows best, making people laugh. It turned out what some saw as his greatest weakness is what makes him truly unique and relatable with his onstage antics, full body comedy, and hilarious insights into family and life. Joey's comedy has a quirky honesty and a quick wit to his shows with some little old school stand up mixed with high energy and real world insight. Comedy isn't just a job for Joey, it saved his life, and he's passionate about bringing his brand of medicine to as many people as possible. Joey has performed on Last Comic Standing, Thou Shalt Laugh 5, Dry Bar Comedy, Yes TV, Comedy Channel, and is a regular on the Date Night Tour. So please welcome Joey ILO. How are you, man?
Good, Naz. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. What I know about you is your father. You said your father was a clown. He did professional clowning.
He was a cop, a clown, and a Christian. And so anytime you tell someone that, they're like, cringe, but he wasn't a stereotype. He was an amazing father. He told me at a young age, he loved comedy. And even when I got into comedy, he was so proud of me doing it. He used to show up to my comedy shows like, where's my green room? I'm like, Dad, there's no green room for you. And, he said... I'm sorry, go ahead. He said, you don't have to be filthy to be funny. You don't have to compromise who you are.
Oh, he said that. That's awesome.
Yes. And that's the kind of man he was. He had a stressful job, obviously. And growing up, we grew up close to Chicago, in between Milwaukee, Chicago, a lot of crime, a lot of that. Obviously, as a father, he was scared that I would get caught up into things. But most parents, they're on you. But he fought for us, and he protected us, and he believed in us, and he always told me, you don't have to compromise who you are. And at times, obviously I fall short and doubt myself in that, but I always think back to those lessons that he taught me, and it's really, it's amazing that I'm 44 years old. I mean, I had the equivalency of a stroke when I was 21. And they said I'd never perform again. So to be able to do this, and today has been a very stressful day for me, and you know about that. And even as I talk to you, I'm fighting to, be happy and energy. And I think it's amazing when I get off stage and people say, "You got so much energy," but what they don't know is I really don't. I struggle with pain a lot on a regular basis. Like today was such a stressful day, because it goes against what the doctors told me to do. But when you do what you love to do, you find a way to do it. And also, you start to work differently. I started writing. I remember when I had the equivalent of a stroke, I was in a stroke unit, and this program came on about this piano player who had an arthritic disease in his hand. And he didn't want anybody to know that he had it, because he knew that his career would be over. So he went and he started compensating for what he couldn't do. He started hiding it, where he would pull this hand over here and he would just work with what he had. And he faked it for 20 years. Nobody even knew that he had that disease, and obviously, but what was so crazy about that story is I had laid in the stroke unit. I just had a rare muscle disease. They didn't know what was going on. And that show came on the television. And I remember it was in my stroke unit watching this going, man, and I wasn't even in comedy. I was in music at the time when that happened.
What were you doing? Yeah, I was going to ask you, what were you doing back then when,
Well, there's some videos floating around YouTube. I'm wearing like a tinfoil suit. I look like a baked potato, look like Vanilla Ice. I was working with the gospel. Well, I didn't work with the gospel choir yet. That's the crazy thing. I was doing hip hop. I was doing Christian rap, and I did work in gospel, and dancing was my thing, but I didn't know I had this underlying muscle disease that had laid dormant in my body. And then I had a traumatic accident. I was working for this company delivering kind of like Coca-Cola, and I just fell down the stairs. And then all of a sudden I started having neurological problems. I didn't know what was going on. My legs were going out of me, weird things. And later found out that traumatic fall down the stairs is what basically activated the dormant disease that had laid in my body. And so it was crazy. I had to go to Mayo Clinic. It took years to find out what was wrong with me. And it was one of those things where the doctor's like, you'll never perform again. And it's just amazing how I went from Racine to Minnesota. They said cold weather would induce an attack. So I moved to one of the coldest states and lived there for 13 years.
Oh, so you're from Chicago originally?
I'm originally from Racine, Wisconsin.
Racine, Wisconsin, but you
That's
moved
right.
to Minnesota, which is colder.
Yes, because I was a patient at Mayo Clinic, and I moved there so that I could go to college and I could also recover. They told me that I was crazy to go up there. It was my father that pushed me. He's like, because when they're like, he's going to have to live at home for another 5 years. My dad's like, please give us another prognosis. I want this kid out of the house, But at the same time, pushing myself with this illness is not a good idea. It's stress induced. And the doctor sat me down and said, you need to find a job without stress, And it's like, try finding one of them, Did it go out again?
No, I can hear you. No, I can hear you. I was just thinking of something, and I wanted to ask you this. The question came to my head. Chris Rossetti said that you stole his wallet. Can we just stop? And of course, it's a joke, but what I want to get to the people while you're saying this is there's so many people who are not comedians, but they have suffering, they have pain, chronic pain.
Right.
And how can they go through that? Like personally, I have rheumatoid arthritis, which is when I was 19, I could not walk, but the doctor said, you're not going to walk, you have inflammation. And I ran 2 marathons after that. And I still do my shows and stuff. So I want you to really, you're the icon for that. How can you perform? And you do what? How many shows did you do today?
I did. Let me see. Well, I did therapy. I got wrapped today because I dislocated my shoulder 2 years ago, 2 days before my dry bar special, and I didn't have time to get an X-ray. And it was one of them things where it's like if I would have said no to dry bar, I would have never had an opportunity for dry bar. So I just wrapped my own arm at the time, jumped on a plane. I was roller skate with my daughter. I fell, and I didn't realize I basically dislocated my elbow, tore the ligaments in my thumb. I thought I fractured my collarbone, and I just found out last week. I finally went into the doctor to get an X-ray because I couldn't take it anymore.
2 years.
After 2 years, and they said I separated my shoulder 2 years ago, and so now they taped me. So that was crazy too because I would perform the show, and then I'd have a sling, and so I'd get on stage. I'm performing the show, doing all this. I come off, and then I put my arm in a sling, and people are like, "Oh, what's wrong with you? Oh, here we go again." And it was like, hey, man, I can't help it that you don't know that this is real. I deal with this every day, and I'm not going to let you make me feel bad about something. It gets to a point where you feel like you've never accomplished anything. You know what I'm saying? And when the doctors told me, you'll never perform again, I had 2 options, either try or die. And then every time you go to try, it acts up. And when it acts up, it paralyzes. My disease is called familial periodic paralysis. You become paralyzed periodically. And I looked at the doctor. I didn't know what he was talking about. And I said, so I'm like a paraplegic with privileges? And snot came out of his nose, and he laughed. And that was the moment I realized comedy was powerful because I wasn't even thinking about being funny. And I made this dude snot come out of his nose and realized, wow, that's powerful. And it would go many more years until it became impossible for me to perform music physically. I just couldn't do it anymore. And I discovered stand-up. And that's why I'm so physical, because I'm only doing what I was doing in my music. I'm not even supposed to do that. But it's less stressful than what I was doing before I got into comedy, if that makes any sense.
No, it makes a lot of sense because some people, they have a headache and they go on workers' comp sometimes.
Yeah.
And but what keeps you going? How do you, when you're in pain, and you need to go up on stage, does the endorphin when you're on stage, you forget about your pain?
Very much so. So this is where it's becoming harder. The fact that I'm coming on your show and talking about this, you know how many opportunities I can lose? You become a liability and then nobody wants to hire you. And but my point is COVID has been amazing for me because finally people are seeing other people. They're not just writing them off. They're seeing, oh man, that's difficult. You know what I'm saying? And it is hard when you have a chronic disease because people try to compare it to a common cold, or they try to compare, or they look and they can't see you, And I told you what I said, and I love him. I think he is amazing. He's your friend. No legs, no arms, no problems,
Yeah, Nick Vujicic.
Yes, if you go on, you get people in the comments section that can find a reason to be jealous of him. Like, what? Like, that's crazy. And believe it or not, at one point when I was becoming bitter, meaning I didn't think there was any hope, I thought, well, maybe the doctors are right. Maybe my career is over. I sit at home. I get depressed. I get angry. And it's one of those things where my faith has helped me. I'm not perfect all the time, and I have to fight. And I realize life is a fight. You have to fight to be happy. You have to fight to be, to go on stage. You have to fight those negative thoughts. And you have to fight. And that's what keeps me going. But in doing that, sometimes you end up fighting people because they don't know what you're going through. And that's the danger of demonization, where everybody thinks we're so different, but we're all on the same team. And when we can't recognize each other on the same team, we eat each other alive. And when we can't realize what our purpose is, then we have none.
You know what? Just to clarify to the audience, we were talking the other day on the phone, and we're talking about Nick Vujicic. Nick has no arms, no legs. He has a ministry called.
I would love to meet him too. By the way, I know you know him, but I would love to meet him.
And
go ahead.
if I told an entertainer or someone who wants to be an entertainer, I said, what if you get to do stadiums, thousands of people each night in different countries? You're in high demand, and you get to encourage people. You get to go on all the major, Good Morning America and all the TV shows, and you get to have a wonderful family. And you go, yeah, I would love that. But in one condition, you'll have no arms and no legs. And they go, no, thank you. Now you, in similar to Nick, but people can't see your pain.
They can't see.
They can see his struggle to be up on stage and to be able to do it, but they can't see your struggle.
Right. And so when you're trying to do a bit and you want to talk about it, in comedy, they say, talk about the problems. Talk about your dad being a clown. Talk about your dad being a clown. Talk about, really? You want me to talk about that? Where am I supposed to go with it when no one believes you? And then they think you're crazy. They think you're kooky. And it's like, well, what if I really had those experiences? What if I had those experiences because I wasn't closed-minded? What if it was that I had said, God, I want to have faith that you can open these doors? And he did, because his understanding is way bigger than ours. And what if I was obedient at that time? And here's the thing. He's given me a special understanding of people who do struggle. I mean that. Now, my daughter has a full functioning autism, and it's been hard, man. It's been hard. She was nonverbal for 5 years, and people see her. They don't know she's autistic, and they're okay with her at times because they'll find out she has autism, and they'll go, "Oh, but she's so pretty. Like she's not supposed to have problems because she's gorgeous." But when she gets in their bubble, or she interrupts their program, or she goes and touches their baby, and they don't know what she's doing, they snap at her because they don't know her heart. They don't know her motives. They don't know her intentions. And they're like, hey, you need to social distance. It's kind of hard to social distance a kid who identifies with touch. They're hands-on. And I've learned so much from my daughter.
How did you come to Christ? How did you personally come to know Jesus?
At a young age, my father, there was an altar call. And I was 5 years old. There was an ice cream social going on down in the basement. And I grew up in a Pentecostal church, so we believed in altar calls and just lingering and coming down. And I don't know what conviction I was feeling at 5 years old. I don't know if I was drawing outside the lines, but for some reason, For
That's
some
funny.
reason, I went
That's
down.
sin. By the way, that's a sin even in the Baptist, not just Pentecostal. You draw outside of the line, you're really pushing it, man.
You're out. You're out there. You're out of it. And I remember the pastor, it was kind of it was a weird announcement because the people were down. I was down at the altar and he goes, hey, and somebody got up and don't forget ice cream social downstairs. Boom. My 5-year-old mind is struggling. We're staying at the altar. And I'll never forget that. I was struggling to not go downstairs and eat ice cream with my friends, but I kept pushing on and I kept praying and I kept asking God into my heart. And I just got lost in him. And my father was the type person, when he was ready to get in the car, you better get in the car. And he was the kind of the deacon of the church. He locked up and everything because he was a cop. And I remember all the lights turned off. I could hear no voices in the background anymore. Everybody seemed to be gone. And I was in the presence of God and I lost time. I didn't know where I was. And I kept praying. And all of a sudden I rubbed my eyes. I turn around, my dad's sitting behind me. And I go to apologize. I'm so sorry, Dad. I didn't mean. And he goes, it's 2:00 in the morning. I said, I'm sorry. He goes, you never have to apologize for seeking God. You never have to apologize for being in his presence. And he goes, and he had tears in his eyes. And he goes, I'm proud of you. And he gave me a big hug. So, my father, his father was, my father had to break the chains of a lot of evil things, not to say that my grandfather, there's a guy named Joey ILO. He has a first name and last name is me. He came closest to killing Capone. And it is scary when I look at his picture because we look alike, got the same first name, last name. And I shared that on my Drive Our special. And people think I'm just making that up. And what's crazy is he's from the same area. He came from Italy, New York to Chicago. My great grandfather came from Italy, New York to Chicago. And, I don't know if we're related, but there's a message in that. You don't have to be what other people's mistakes were. You don't have to live what other people's curses are. And people will try to put that on you. They'll try to put those curses back on you and say, look, you ain't any different. Look, I told you, you cussed last night or you lost, and that's the devil trying to beat you down and put that around your neck. And so for me, because my parents allowed me to praise God and to be free in that, it gives me the freedom on stage when I'm on stage. It gives me the freedom to, so I do feel comfortable. It just becomes it's been challenged, as I've gotten older. Ticking is a problem. You might see it now because I've had a stressful day. When I'm really stressed out, I start ticking like that. And that is really hard in stand-up because you were at a conference one time and you taught how you don't want to wear a t-shirt that has writing on it because the crowd will go from listening to you to reading your shirt. And the same thing with that happens to a lot of new comics. They got material, but they're so nervous that the crowd can sense that, and you can't let the crowd see your cards or they'll win. And so so you have to practice all the time. I'm practicing constantly. I'm not just practicing my material. I'm practicing to fight some of the impulses that my body wants to do. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. I want to ask you this. Are you mad at God because of
No,
daughter?
Not at all. Not at all. I see, man, here's the crazy thing, man. The whole thing that happened in Afghanistan this week, the images of the people jumping on that plane and getting on there. And, if anything, it's made me feel guilty. Like, man, what am I doing complaining? So I get that side because sometimes I'm like, what am I complaining? We got running water, we got electricity, and these people are hanging on a plane for their life, and they'd rather fall from the sky than So, I'm not on here to talk to you about how hard my life is. I think that some people look at that when you bring it up, like, I'm trying to inspire people to be able to push through the criticism, push through, because if you're going to make a stand, you're going to come up against opposition. And if you've never been uncomfortable, how are you going to, what I'm trying to say?
But do you have days where you don't feel like fighting? You're too tired of fighting. What do you do? How do you?
All the time.
How do you?
All the time. All the time. And that's a struggle. It can come into your home. It can make people. And if anything, I've been trying to use this time to work on things to control, because it started to seep into anger. It
Mm.
became a problem where I was having a hard time controlling tics. So then had a hard time controlling volume, and then it became yelling, and then, you know what I'm saying? And then that spirals out of control and it becomes abusive. And so every day I'm trying to, and when I studied the guy that I look like and have the same name, the guy's an evil guy. I mean, he came closest to killing Capone. He used to whack people left and right. And I go, I don't want to become that. I know that I might have the same genes. We might come from the same whatever, but this curse can be broken. It doesn't have to keep going on like this.
And your dad did that. He broke that.
He did that. He did that, but he struggled too. He had a father who never told him he loved him. He had all kinds of issues. So, in the sense that, he had a really hard job too. He had to fight feelings, to not judge people, and, but when he retired and later in his life, man, my father, he's just so loving. I can see that the stress in the situation caused him to be like this, because he cared about us so much that he didn't want us to be harmed. He was trying to keep us protected. And that's why it's so important to respect men and women who are fighting for us and protect. And sometimes we take that for granted and we criticize them. And it's like, hey, man, it could be, what I'm trying to say? Like, oh, you don't want security? Okay. You don't want the cops? You want the, and I don't know that you really want that. You know what I'm saying? And so when it's your home, people will be like, oh, you're controlling, or whatever they think you are. And it's like, no, the only thing I'm trying to control is to keep my area safe, keep the atmosphere so that we can grow, so that the plant doesn't get killed,
Now, you're on stage, you finish your show, and you're having a standing ovation. People are screaming, laughing. Do you feel pain at that moment, or it's gone?
Well, like tonight, for instance, I really felt pain all the way through, to the point where I'll tell you, okay, so because they put this new thing on me, they put this new tape on me.
Tape, yeah, that's like the Olympics now. All these players have the.
Now, that's for the separated shoulder. Because I have underlying neurological muscle disease, it causes me to have spasms, because my body's not used to this. The muscles aren't used to this. So what it did is it pushed the spasms up into my neck and into my head. And it caused horrible. And it's because I just got set today. And then I went out and performed. I probably shouldn't have done that. But what do you do when you have to provide for your family? And here's the thing, I won't do it tomorrow. I'm if I have to, I'll just call in sick and be like, whatever. But I try to be consistent in my life too. If I say I'm going to do a contract, I'm going to do it. If I say, I'm going to work as much as I possibly can, because I have a family to provide for. And that's another challenge too. It's like, man, I'm not just looking out for me. I'm looking out for all my 2 kids, my wife, my in-laws live here. We brought them here. They live here. They used to live with me.
Your wife, your wife is from Brazil, or where? What country?
She's from Ecuador.
Ecuador. And I remember we used to pray together because her paperwork wasn't working, or was that? And then now you have 2 kids, and their family is here from Ecuador as well.
Yeah, and it was difficult. There was a lot going on. There was an earthquake, a 7.9 earthquake that came, and we had their papers in for a long time. And that earthquake hit the city they're from, and my father-in-law got accepted, but my mother-in-law was still there. So my mother-in-law was still there when the earthquake took place the night before, and all the buildings around her had collapsed. So my father-in-law comes to the state, but his wife is still back there, because he was going to come first so we could help him get a job and then she was going to come. She gets stuck there. She finally gets here, and then she would go back to visit because she missed her home, obviously. And when the COVID thing broke out, she went to go to Ecuador, and it was one of the biggest breakouts in Ecuador, and she got stuck over there, and she's not a citizen, so we couldn't get her back into the country. And so she stayed over there, and it was just insane because they were so overwhelmed. The hospitals were so overwhelmed. And also they just didn't have enough people to do away with the bodies, that people were wrapping up their family members and laying them in the streets. So my mother-in-law just stayed in her home over with her mother, who's still alive, and family members there until we could get her home in June. And then when we got her home in June, I got COVID and she got COVID at the same time. And I recovered after 10 days and she ended up in the hospital, but she recovered, and we're so thankful for that. Now she's got vaccine and all that. In my situation, I have to be, it's a whole nother ballpark. And so, my family is vaccinated and, but in my situation, I have genetic opposites. It can kill me. So now I have to figure out what I'm going to do as far as medical exemption and things of that nature. It's a very complicated thing. And when I watch on the internet and I see people just demonizing people, you don't know their situation, what works for one person doesn't work for the other. And, I'm not there to question their motives. You know what I'm saying? And I get it that we're all safe, but there's some people what about disabled people who, you can't discriminate against people who have auto deficiency and neurological problems, in their system set up differently than, and so, yeah, I mean, when you're not taking that into a consideration, you're not seeing people, you're not seeing them, you see them, but you're not really truly caring about them, and that hurts my heart.
How does your wife feel about, number one, your suffering and your sickness, and also your career? Hold on. Okay. Keep option. Okay, and let's see. Yeah. How do you feel about that? How does she feel about that?
Well, it was funny when we first got married. She was like, "I don't care what you do as long as you bring home a check."
Okay, that makes sense. That's reasonable.
Yes. But I mean, it is difficult, right? I mean, because it's going out on the road, being gone for a real long time, it puts her in a situation where then she's got to step up. I think bringing her parents here helped us a lot. Yeah. My mom coming here helped us a lot. You got to understand, when we moved to Branson, we had nobody. We had a brand new baby with autism, and it was me, my wife, and that was it. And we were in a town. We're in the South. I'm not from the South. You know where we moved from? Minneapolis, Minnesota. And my wife worked at Wells Fargo off of Lake Street. And on the first night of the riots, they burnt the job that she worked to the ground. And my daughter was born in Abbott Hospital in Minneapolis, and that was right behind the precinct that they burned to the ground. And 2 days before this happened, my wife had said, "You think we made the right decision to move here?" And then we watched it unfold on the television, and it was surreal because, and the crazy thing is that's the first riot. The second riot took place in Kenosha, and my brother moved here with my mom, and from Kenosha, he worked at a Quick Trip. As far as I know, I think they burnt that one to the ground too.
They burned that one down. Yeah.
Yes, and he came here and started working for me, and didn't understand, and we would get into it. It was uncomfortable for him to work with me, and it was uncomfortable for me to work with him. But I started to see what was happening. Like, okay, he's, and this girl kept coming to my show, and he was working for me. He was my curtain opener and the camera guy.
Road manager.
And, yes, and he meets this girl comes. We are doing 200 shows in Branson, and this girl comes to 150 of those shows, and we can't figure out who she's there for. And come to find out, she's coming to see my brother. Our show went away, and they ran into each other in town, went on a date, and now they're married. And so now they're married. Now my brother's married, and he's got his own place. And now my in-laws got their own place. And so we're seeing our family grow, and it makes me proud because I got to tell you, the whole step of the way, when all this stuff was happening, I couldn't see it. This didn't feel like home. My wife was miserable. I was miserable. I can't say we were necessarily miserable with each other. It was just kind of like, this isn't home. South America's home for her, but so is up north. North is home for me. I'm not from the South. I'm not from a small town. I was on a radio station in Branson, and they said, "What do you think?" When I first moved here, "What do you think of Branson?" I said, "Oh, it's great to be here in the South." And the lady goes, "What makes you think we're in the South?" And I'm like, "I don't know. The Confederate flag souvenir shops kind of gave it away." And I can say that, and because I'm not talking about what's just recently happened. I said that 10 years ago. you
Uh-huh.
know, and it doesn't surprise me that they're using, that people are using this to divide people, because it made me feel uncomfortable. And when we're not seeing each other and we're not communicating with each other, then we make our own assumptions of what we think is going on. And that divides us and causes us not to stand together when we're on the same team.
What is your comedy about? What bits do you do? What do you work on? What are the bits that you've been performing?
I mean, I try to be universal, right? Like I'll be real honest with you. Lately, I don't know that I've been able to be myself, right? Like, you've been trying to just not rock the boat. You're
Mm.
trying not to offend anybody. You're trying not to, and that doesn't feel like you're being yourself. But the only reason why I'm talking to you about all of this right now, somebody might be watching, and I really don't care what anybody thinks anymore, is because I can't care anymore. I really can't. I think I've cared too much. I cared not to offend anybody in Branson. I cared not to offend anybody over here and over there, and the atheists and the this and the that. And the sad thing is, I wasn't being who I was. And I wasn't being who I was because they didn't believe it was me. Well, who cares what they think? Because it is me. And I have to get back to that. Every day I have to, and it's just like my illness. I got to fight through the junk of what people think I am, and be content in who I know God has called me to be. And
Mm.
it's a battle every day.
It is. And you know what? Like the other day, my kids say that these jokes don't work anymore
Right.
because it's a whole new generation. And I was thinking, I said, you know what? These jokes are funny. I wrote them. And if I don't go on stage and do what I feel is funny to me, I will not have a motivation to go up and do jokes that other people are going to be they like. And you're right about this. You can't always worry about, we don't want to be malicious. We're not, we don't want malice, but at the same time, we want to do what we believe is funny to us and our point of view. So
It was really
that,
funny. I had a really awesome conversation with my wife this morning in the bathroom. I said we like to listen to. She likes to listen to Dave Ramsey, and she's different than me. She's organized. She's got it all together. I mean, she's brilliant. She speaks 3 languages. I mean, I really admire her. I mean, sometimes she might not think, because of what I do, that I get her, because we're on 2 different wavelengths. Like comedians get accused sometimes of just being like, goofy, and he's weird or whatever. But I really admire her. Like, I never get jealous of her because she's gifted at that. I know I can't do that. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I was always taught to do, is, if it isn't me, don't get jealous of other people. Learn from them, and also realize that you ain't them, that they're gifted. I mean, and we had a really cool conversation this morning. She had said that I don't know. She was talking about, she's into makeup, and she wanted to create. I said, we're talking about business ideas, because we were talking about that. What if my business is over? What if I'll never go back, to doing what I do? We should start another business. But if we're going to start a business, and she said, I had an idea to start a business, but it was a stupid idea. And I said, no, share it with, what was it? She said something about scales with the makeup scale, creating like a makeup scale. And I don't know that she was prepared for my answer, because I said, well, is there a patent for that? And she goes, she's like, what's a patent? What not that she doesn't know what it is, but maybe it has a different word meaning, right? And I said, well, is it patent, like copyrighted? And she goes, I don't know, I've never checked. I said, well, you should check it. And if it isn't, it's not a stupid idea, because that means no one's thought of it. And so then you need to get the patent. So then when somebody does get the idea, even though you're not the best at it, you own that, and they have to buy it from you. And so what I'm talking about in this conversation is, everybody's going where everybody's going. Everybody's, even in business, they want to go where the hot thing is, and they want to copy that. But they don't want to do the hard work. They don't want to stay where it's lonely. They don't want to work in that and work their way out of that. And sometimes what I've learned in comedy, that's, because my disease has been lonely, my whole situation has been lonely, but that's why I enjoy stand-up, because it's lonely. It's just you up there. You don't got nothing. So instead of sitting and being woe is me, I'm actually doing something. I'm making people laugh. Instead of being depressed, I'm giving. So it really is a spiritual thing because you're giving, you're not just receiving, you're giving. And I'm giving even more because I'm in pain. So I don't look at it like, I don't necessarily think I'm like amazing or anything like that. I just, instead of sitting in the corner and being so sad about what I can't do, I get to get on stage and do what I do.
And you know what? I gotta tell you this, Joey. I mean, every time you're on stage, it's like a challenge, and you overcome it by finishing the show and being a response. I have a question from Michael Ramirez. He said, "Do you ever not?" And I know the answer is no, but do you ever not accept an assignment because you're uncertain how you'll feel physically or mentally?
I mean, the only time that I did that was basically with COVID, but that was because of the fact that that was just the right thing to do. Now, what was crazy was Akintunde. I don't know if you know who he is. Akintunde wanted me to come to North Carolina to do a show, and it was the night before. This is before COVID broke out. It was the night before, and I got what I thought was just a flu, and I had 104 temp, and I just wanted to get on that plane because we needed the money,
Right.
And my wife made me go to the doctor, and I had like 104 temp, and they did the COVID test because they didn't know it was COVID. They said it was influenza A, but that came so close to getting pneumonia, and I just stayed home and it did what I was supposed to do. I drank tons of water, vitamin C, anything. I knew what my illness was. I knew what I was supposed to whatever, and I got better. And then I went on to the date night tour to Canada and performed 50 straight shows. Now, when I did that, I didn't realize that maybe I did have COVID and I just recovered, but nobody knew what COVID was. So we're on the date night tour, and it's in the middle of February, and it is like minus 30 degrees. And my disease is affected by extreme hots because I've been outside today when I'm not supposed to be. I was doing a pool party MCing, and you're not supposed to be at 1 and 2 o'clock with my illness. It's just not. But I do it, I mean, if it's not worth it, and I know I can't do it, I'll say no. But I had to do it today, and I felt like I could do it. But I'm on this plane, and I'm with another comedian, and my nose starts bleeding. And I had my nose cauterized 3 times when I was a kid before they knew I had this disease. And now the doctors think it's linked to all my problems, right? So I start bleeding. And one of the reasons why I haven't slept, I'm overstressed, and the air is very dry in Canada. And so it caused me to have a nosebleed. But I've been having nosebleeds, and it was coming out of my mouth, and I felt it coming. So I tilted my head back, and I went to the back of the plane. TSA, the stewardess keeps knocking on the door. Hey, come out, and I am in the bathroom trying to stop this from bleeding. And I can't. I mean, I know this is gross. If whatever, I apologize. But it's spritzing, and I'm trying to stop it. And she's, come on, sir, you got to come out. And I'm like, I'll be right there. And the guy, I had been studying, how can I stop bloody noses quick? Because sometimes I get them. And that's crazy, too, because I've never smoked, never drank, never done drugs. So when you have a bloody nose in today's society, people think you're a cokehead. I've never done coke. Right? So I'm like, what am I going to do? So I had been studying. I'm a big boxing fan, and I was always watching the cut guys. Yeah. I'm like, that looks like Vaseline. So I started thinking maybe Vaseline, because my mom, when I was young, a little kid, she put Crisco up my nose. When I got my nose cauterized, they put 3 feet of gauze, and they try to solder it. But because it's tied to the disease, it never fixed it. It would just come out of other places, and I didn't know it was tied to that. But I decided, because it was so dry, Vaseline is back at my seat. And the comic I'm touring with, maybe he can give me that and I can go back and stop it. So the stewardess doesn't see me bleeding, because she'll call TSA when we land. Yeah. And so, and it's blood. And so I go back to the seat, and I got to keep my head back. And I'm looking up at the sky, and this guy's the comic. And I'm like, hey, can you hand me my bag? And he goes, get it yourself. And he's joking. He's joking, though, because he doesn't know. And I'm like, no, you get it. And I'm not trying to make a big deal because everybody around will see. And then they'll notify that I'm acting strange, because it says if you see someone acting strange on a plane, make sure you tell them. And so I'm like, give me, I'm trying not to get mad. And he's just not moving fast. Finally, he just hands me the bag, and I go back and I spend another 10 minutes, and we're about to land, and they're really knocking on the door, and they're upset at me. And I come back, I sit in my chair, and we're landing, and I'm getting weaker because I lost so much blood. Now I can't feel my legs, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to get up because I feel so weak, And so I turn to him and go, hey man, I don't think I have the strength to get my bag down. Can you get my bag? And he goes, get your own bag. I'm like, listen to me. Okay. And I'm trying to whisper to him, just get the bag and get up to the thing and get me a wheelchair. And go, oh, you need a wheelchair? Yes, I need a wheelchair. Okay, just get it for me. Okay, but just go ahead of me, and act like grandma's coming off the plane, and I'll walk up slowly. And so he's like, okay. So he
thinks you're playing, so he gets something.
He does. He thinks I'm joking. And a stewardess comes. I had blood on my hand. I didn't wash it all off, and I didn't know that. And the person next to me had pushed their button, and could see it on my hand because I had my hand here. Somebody reported me. The stewardess are coming up now. Is everything okay here, sir? I'm like, oh yeah, everything's fine. I don't want to lie to nobody, but I have a show that night in Buffalo, and I don't want to get pulled off this plane. And when and I know what to do. It's just stress. I need sleep, And sorry, I'm trying to think. My head's killing me. So we're trying to get it. So anyway, so we do get off the plane. He does what I tell him to do. I don't see him. I don't have my bags. I'm just walking slowly because I got to get that blood pumping in me again. And I'm walking up the thing, and there's the TSA person at the top of the deal. And I'm thinking, they're going to call an ambulance. They're going to make me go to the hospital. I'm not going to be allowed to board the plane. I'll get kicked off this tour. And when we get to the stewardess steps up and goes, hey, is everything all right? And I said, yeah, I'm just tired. I have a neurological thing. And and she goes, yeah, let me give you a food voucher. And she gives me and my partner a food voucher. And that's really what I needed. I needed to eat, and I needed to be taken to a hotel and rest. And they put me in the deal. And my friend, he went and got me food, or the comedian, and he comes back and he's wheeling me to the baggage claim. And he goes, bro, why are you going through this, man? Why don't you just retire? And I turn to him and I go, hey, I'm sorry, you're just seeing this for the first time. I've been dealing with this for 20 years. So make sure you bring it tonight, because I will be ready. And it sounds like I'm angry, but I wasn't angry. I'm motivated to not fight people. Sometimes I fight people, but they think they just don't understand my situation, right? So I get on that stage that night, and that what you said happened. It was a standing ovation, and he didn't do so well. And I felt bad for him because he doesn't understand what we're not fighting each other, Right. And not everybody's cut out to do the same things. Everybody wants to be the headliner, and everybody wants to be. They don't understand. I started in the stroke unit, and I didn't promote myself. God did. I mean, he opened every door along the way. Every time man tried to shut a door or put me down or whatever, it brought me to a where, I had to rely on him and say, okay, I need you to open these doors because do it. And so I'm back in that position again today. I think we all are. And it's one of them things where we have to be grateful for what we do have, and we have to see other people where they're at and not just blow people off, not demonize, not write people off. People are going through things. And we have to make sure that we're loving, we don't have to accept everything they do and say, but we need to love them. What's in your heart comes out. And at times my heart got dirty and my heart got bitter. And so anger came out. I started seeing it in some of my material, so there's something John Chris used to say that I really, really liked. He'd say, check your heart. I love that. The ability to check your heart. There's no way that we're perfect. It is not that we make mistakes. We make mistakes. It's going to happen. You're going to see my slip show. You're seeing it right now. I mean, I'm having a hard time holding this together, but sometimes you got to break away from the business and be real. And sometimes when you're real with people and you really let people know, it opens doors that you can't force open. Sometimes you have to play the game and you have to go along with things, but sometimes you just have to be honest and let people know where you're at.
And I have, before we're getting close to the closing, I need to ask 2 questions, but I want to say something to those who are listening or going to listen.
And yes, my wife is amazing.
Joey,
she is beautiful.
No,
sorry, go ahead.
Joey is one of the hardest working guys. He haven't missed a show because of his challenges. So some people think, can we book him? Yes, you can. How can people get a hold of you to book you?
I don't have an agent anymore. I don't know that most of us do anymore. And so you can message me. You can message me, and
where they can do that? Where they
on my Facebook, on Messenger. Send me a private message. I mean, the thing is, if I feel, that's another thing. I take shows that speak to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, my successes always happen with relationships. I go back to the same places 7 times. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's because then I don't have to worry about getting ripped off. I know the people appreciate me and I appreciate them. And so, let me know what you're doing and see if we can't make it work. So
what's your Facebook or Instagram?
Oh man, Instagram. Joey ILO. Yeah, Joey ILO. You can, if you go into Google and just put Joey ILO, Instagram, it will come up. Facebook, it will come up. Go to joeyilocomedy.com. joeyilocomedy.com is my website that has links in there too. But I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook. You'll find me.
What are you working on right now? What's your next project?
Well, I was supposed to go to Gutties, and my next project is seeing if I can. Yes, I'm not just going to do Indiana. I'm going to do Minneapolis too. I'm going to go to Indiana, and then I'm going to go to Minneapolis in late October, to 28th, 29th. I'm going to be in Indiana, and then the first week of November, I'm going to be in Minneapolis and being one of their first headliners. I'm going back to where I lived for 13 years. That's pretty cool. Bringing clean comedy to Minneapolis, I think that's fantastic. And then I was going to say. I'm going to be, and so, trying to drive those places and would love, if you're in the Midwest area and in any of those places, I'll be in Tennessee. I'll be in Nashville in November 20th. And so if you're in that Nashville area and you have a church where you want me to come or any kind of event, I love to, tell my story. I try to come out and just do my jokes. And then, build that relationship with the crowd. Then I let them know. I learned with my disease, if you come up to somebody and you tell them that you have a disease, they don't, it's too much. You have to build a relationship with them through the laughter, and then you can reveal that. But even that, I don't try to go deep into my illness. That's not what I do. I do what I do. I try to give everything I got to bless people and inspire them to go forward.
You have some friends and comedians like Michelle Van Dusen just put all your links, and also Chris Rossetti and Bobby Miller says you have a great voice, and he didn't know you can sing too. You've been singing.
Oh, thank you.
You have a great. And you're a handsome man. You know that.
Oh, cut that out.
So
thank you. Keep going.
Okay. In closing, can you encourage someone who is going through pain right now to continue on, just in 2 minutes?
Find something that you like to do. To me, it is the baby step. And I know that that's not even spiritual advice in a sense. Pastors would give you a scripture verse. What I'm saying to you is that I found something that I could do in my situation that took my mind off of all the garbage. Took my mind off the negativity. I don't even care if it's painting birdhouses. That's a baby step to me, because then you start to get joy back. You start to get life back. You start to do something you love to do. I started coaching my son's Pee-wee soccer team, 3 and 4 years old. And they gave us the team name, The Revolution. And I was like, do you got another name for 3 and 4-year-old soccer players? Because one of my kids was like, what's a revolution? And so they said, well, we only have one team name left. It's called the Fire. And I said, woo, I like that. And so I started coming up, and I didn't even know where the Fire was. Come to find out, they're from Chicago, the Chicago Fire. And I had the sweatshirt. It's the Chicago Fire. And so my son's on the team, and I wanted to, when we were the Revolution, I thought about doing like the gospel song. Are you ready for a revolution? Whoop, whoop. We sounded like we were riding. So I decided to change the name to Fire. And then I just decided to write my own little to get them fired up. I said, individually, we're little sparks, but when we come together as a team, we form a fire. And the kids would say that. And I go, you ready to get fired up? You ready to get fired up? And I go, show me your spark hands, because we couldn't touch each other. So I would just point at them and we, instead of putting the hands in and touching, we were at 6 feet apart, and I would go. So we do 3 games. We go to get our photos taken. I only showed them that one time. I remember the kids, when they got on the team, they were shy. They didn't know me, stranger danger. Even my son was running over to the other teams and wanted to be coached by them. And so I knew I needed to connect with him and in team. And I showed him that one time, and we go to get our photos done. And the guy taking the photos, he's just running through, put your hands to the side, click, next. And so we get up and we line up, and all my kids go. And the guy yells at him and goes, hey, put those hands to the side. And it's like they were yelling, like he was yelling at my kid. And it just came out of me. I'm like, hey, how are we supposed to get fired up if we can't do the flame hands? And the guy goes, put your flaming hands down. Okay, I'm sorry. And I put my hands to the side, and I look like a robot. And we paid $30 for these robot hands to the side pictures. And then what I didn't realize was that all the parents, I want to show you something. Hold on a second.
Okay. I love it.
I don't want you to see it. They put together, you can't see the faces because I don't want you to see the faces. But you see from afar, we're going like this. The parents had taken pictures of us taking this picture of doing that. And they put together a collage that said, go Team Fire. And it said, thank you, Coach, for getting us fired up. And I thought I was going to have an impact on them kids. And they had an impact on me during a pandemic, and I've had everybody call me, how are you doing? Well, I was doing this, and this brought me, a volunteering. There wasn't any paid gig. There's no money here. But man, the relationship and spending time with my son, and just sometimes you got to do that. Sometimes, it's not even just about reset. Sometimes you just got to find, you're so busy. And so use this time to get ready. So when you are on stage, you'll be powerful. And so I'm always backstage drinking water and vitamin C's or whatever I need to do. And when that light comes on, boom, because I want to give that energy. I want to say thank you. Thank you to God that he's given me the strength to do it, because it's really not me. And I've always wanted to share with people who think it's me. And at times, if it was me, I do apologize. But I want you to know that I just want to give 100% to encourage people. I really do care. And if anybody needs it nowadays, don't give up. Keep fighting. Fight for what's right and your family, things that are important, and just don't give in.
Amen. I love you, man. Thank you so much. What an encouragement to a lot of people. And these podcasts will last for years and years and years, and people can hear it. And I know it will encourage them. Thank you. Praying for you and your family and your daughter and your son. And I pray that you get so busy. Just God will give you the healing and the strength to be able to do that. I love you, man.
Love you, buddy. Thanks for having me.
Oh, anytime. Thank you so much, Joey. All right, people. And if you're in a key, what do you call it? A gatekeeper, someone who books events, someone who's does nonprofit galas and all that, or clubs or theaters. Branson, Missouri is a big place, big theaters, and Joey's been performing there. He is part of the tour in Canada, which is a marriage tour. So bring him to a church, bring him to your event. You really will be really happy that you did. He's an encouragement. And also I want to encourage you to In about 40 minutes, join us for the Live with Naz on Facebook here, Comedian Nazareth, and you'll be able to laugh with us and be funny with us, and we'll encourage you. All right? Love you guys. Thank you so much for watching this episode of the Laughter for All podcast, and hope to see you next time. Love you and thank you.